If you were to ask 10 people to name one game that encapsulates everything that makes the Sega Dreamcast such a fantastic console, there's a good chance that you'd get 10 different answers. The Shenmue games, Soul Calibur, Power Stone, Sonic Adventure 1 or 2, Skies of Arcadia, Marvel vs Capcom 2, there are so many to choose from and everyone will have their favourite. But for me, there's one game above all others that captures the very essence of the Dreamcast and Sega itself. It's got blue skies and crazy vibes, and in many ways it's the gaming equivalent of an early 2000s time capsule. I'm of course talking about the incredible Crazy Taxi! So what is it about Crazy Taxi that makes it such a timeless game, and even more so, why does it perfectly represent the Dreamcast? Well, before we get into that, let's take a look at the game itself in some more detail. You see, Crazy Taxi at a glance is like most Sega arcade games. It's colourful, it's loud, and it draws you in. And while you could easily throw a quid in the machine and have fun for 5 minutes, if you dedicate yourself to learning the intricacies of the game, you'll find an incredible level of depth lurking just beneath the surface. In Crazy Taxi, it's vital that you learn 2 moves early on to get the most out of the game, and those are the Crazy Dash and the Limit Cut. Both are vital for getting your cab up to top speed, and it's only when going full pelt does the game truly put the crazy into Crazy Taxi. Once you get used to the change in speed, that's when your reactions come into play as you rack up crazy through combos. A crazy through is gained when you pass traffic narrowly, regardless of whether it's facing the same direction or it's coming straight at you. Weaving in and out of traffic at speed is crucial to success, both in terms of combo score, but also ensuring that your passenger is dropped off as fast as possible, earning a speedy rank and those all-important time bonuses. When dropping passengers off, using the Crazy Drift is an excellent way of scoring extra bonus points by adding to your combo. It's also an excellent means of checking out the passengers around you to plot out your next fare. Of course, when you're going at pace, you'll want to use the Crazy Stop as well. What's the point of building up all that speed only to have to slow down gradually as you approach the drop-off zone? By slamming the brakes while shifting into reverse, your cab will come to a near instant halt. When dropping customers off, speed is the name of the game, and you're rewarded with time bonuses depending on which rank you're given when a customer leaves your cab. Speed 8, normal and slow all give time bonuses ranging from highest to lowest, but a bad ranking will leave you receiving a mouthful of abuse from an angry customer, no fare earned and no time bonus. In reality, no experienced Crazy Taxi player will ever see a ranking below normal at worst. So you've got the Crazy Dash, the Limit Cut, the Crazy Drift, the Crazy Stop and the Crazy Through so far, and it all sounds like a lot to remember, but soon enough these moves become second nature, and you'll see your runs last longer with more passengers collected and higher fares earned. Right, so that's a whistle-stop tour of the game and how it works, but the city in Crazy Taxi is incredibly alive, and its occupants as well as the cabbies who pick them up are part of what makes the game so memorable. So let's take a look at the 4 cabbies players can choose from first, because they each have a unique story and, most importantly, are tailored to different playstyles and skill sets. Axel, 21 years old, who likes board sports, bass and punk rock, is seen as the poster boy of Crazy Taxi and is immediately recognisable thanks to his bright green hair and flamboyant Hawaiian shirt. From the age of 10, all Axel wanted to be was a cab driver, and for him, it's the coolest profession there is. Axel enjoys entertaining passengers in exchange for big tips, and after work he enjoys nothing more than to play bass and sing vocals for his punk band. Despite his personable exterior, Axel has a fiery personality, which has led to him being kicked out of bands in the past. But when he's not driving a cab or being in a band, he relaxes by surfing and skateboarding. Axel is considered the best player for Crazy Taxi beginners due to the all-round nature of his cab, which has no perceivable weaknesses, but at the same time, his cab and driving style offer no real advantages to skilled players either. BD Joe, 25 years old, who likes drumming and card tricks. Now if there's one thing about BD Joe, it's that he's always smiling, always friendly and always cheery, and he loves nothing more than dropping passengers off with a big smile on their face. BD Joe is a master of driving and talking at the same time, and will always engage with passengers regardless of the traffic ahead of him. BD Joe is the fastest cabbie in Crazy Taxi at normal speed, and the second heaviest cab in the game. It's also the easiest cab to crazy drift and has decent acceleration. Many player guides claim that BD Joe's cab is in fact the worst handling in the game, yet I've never found an issue with his cab, and BD Joe is in fact my go-to in Crazy Taxi. Gina, 23 years old, who likes driving and car mechanics. Gina became a cabbie for one reason: to drive. She has the skills to be a professional race driver, but feels being a cabbie offers more thrills by weaving in and out of traffic at high speed. Gina also doesn't care if her passengers enjoy her driving or not. She just wants them dropped off as quick as possible so she can grab the next fare and look for more thrills. When she's not driving her cab, Gina spends most of her time and money on tuning it up. At a glance, Gina seems like the best cabbie in the game. Her cab is the narrowest, it's got the best acceleration and deceleration, it's got the best handling and the most responsive brakes. But these positives come with a caveat though, because with the best deceleration comes the need to limit cut more when you get going to build up that speed again. Gina's cab almost feels twitchy to first time users due to how lightweight and responsive it is. The biggest downside to Gina's cab though is also a result of one of its most positive attributes, because its excellent road traction means it's the most difficult cab in the game to put into a crazy drift. 42-year-old Gus loves gambling and winning. As a young man, Gus was a selfish and uncontrollable hooligan who hated losing and had to be number one at any cost. Gus created the Crazy Taxi trend when he bought an old beat-up 1949 Mercury 8 and took it to the roads. These days, Gus is far more mellow and spends his spare time playing poker with his buddies, and he's no longer got that drive to win at all costs in order to enjoy life. In many ways, Gus's cab is the most natural feel and fit for experienced and skilled Crazy Taxi players. It may have the worst acceleration and deceleration in the game, but the speed boost gained from both the Crazy Dash and the Limit Cut last longer than any other cabbie. Due to the sheer weight of Gus's cab, hitting traffic has far less effect than it does on the other three cabs, although your crazy combo chain will still end with any impact. Of course, due to Gus's cab having the worst deceleration, stopping it can be a challenge for less experienced Crazy Taxi players, which is why it's advantageous to crazy drift into walls in the drop-off zones to bring that cab to an instant halt. Getting to know the inhabitants of Crazy Taxi's world is key to a successful run, and while passengers can and will throw a curveball with their destinations, eventually you'll be able to aim for certain passengers depending on their look and location. Here are some of the destinations requested most often by some of the more memorable NPCs in Crazy Taxi. The old lady will almost always ask to go to the police station, regardless of whether you pick her up at the baseball stadium or in the main city itself. For most players, she's the next fare you'll get when dropping off at the baseball stadium, due to her location inside the drop-off zone. However, on rare occasions, her indicator is yellow instead of light green, and she'll ask to go to the heliport instead. The priests will ask to go to the church at the bottom of the hill every single time, while the brown leather jacket man will alternate between three locations: the heliport, the RB station and the baseball stadium. The punk rocker will ask to go to Tower Records, but can also request to go to KFC. The man in the black suit and sunglasses will alternate between the police station and the fire station, and the man with flowers has several destinations depending on where you find them. If you find him near the start of a run, he'll usually ask to go to KFC, but if you find him across from the fire station, he'll ask to go to the university, which takes you back to the start of the map. But on occasion, he can throw a curveball and ask to go to the mall. The baseball fan is the most obvious. He will ask to go to the baseball stadium 99.99% of the time. The other NPCs are a far more varied bunch when it comes to their destinations, but by looking out for these specific characters that I just mentioned, you can begin to plot your route around the city. Keep in mind that the destination they request will also depend on the colour of the indicator above their head. There are 5 colours: green, light green, yellow, orange and red, and they all vary in distance depending on colour, green being the longest distance and red being the shortest. Crazy Taxi features brands that are very much of the era, with Pizza Hut, KFC, Fila, the original Levi's store and the now defunct Tower Records represented via both their brand logos but also their iconic stores. The inclusion of real world brands adds a plausibility to the city, making it feel even more alive and believable. Due to licensing issues, these brands are removed in later re-releases, such as on Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network and iOS and Android. And I have to admit that as a long-time player of the game, hearing "take me to Pizza Parlour" instead of "take me to Pizza Hut" dilutes the experience significantly. Having Tower Records in there is a nice touch too, given that they were one of the 2 sites in the UK's keynote European launch in London, something we covered in our 25th European Dreamcast anniversary video. Other major changes to the brands include renaming KFC to FCS, short for Fried Chicken Shack, Levi becomes the clothing store, Tower Records becomes the record store, and the Fila store has no branding at all. In fact, the Fila store on mobile, Xbox and PlayStation versions of Crazy Taxi are now tragic relics of the past, because the store is now nothing more than another in-game building. Any customers from the original game who ask to go to the Fila store will now request to go to Popcorn Mania instead. As I said, it just dilutes the overall feel and aura of the game. But sadly, licenses don't last forever. If you say Crazy Taxi to a Sega gamer, there's a high probability that the first words they'll say back to you are "yeah, yeah, 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 yeah." Now, Crazy Taxi's soundtrack is beyond legendary, with The Offspring and Bad Religion providing 2 songs each that would be used in the main game, and those being All I Want, Way Down the Line, 10 in 2010 and Them and Us. Further tracks were provided by both bands for use in the game's menus and end credits. Change the World by The Offspring is present in the game's menu, while Bad Religion's Hear It and Inner Logic provide the music for the Cabby select screen and end credits respectively. As with the brands, sadly the music has fallen foul of licensing issues on most platforms out with the arcade and Dreamcast release. At present, the mobile version on iOS and Android still features the licensed music, but it's a more stripped down gameplay experience in terms of controls, despite having perfect visuals. Oddly though, when playing the iOS version for this video, I noticed that none of the cabbies had their voice actors present, likewise the menu announcer. The Dreamcast version of Crazy Taxi is packed with extras to expand the life of the game beyond the basic arcade experience. The first of these is the original city, a bespoke larger city with a unique layout that includes destinations from the arcade mode as well as many new ones. Some of these include the Marine Museum, Big Hills Park, South Parking Train Station, West Central Station and several more. I've seen the term original cause some confusion over the years, because some have been led to believe that it's the original version of the game, rather than what it is, an original city designed for the Dreamcast release. I've always felt that the larger scale and more maze-like layout of the original city laid the foundations for Crazy Taxi 2. The second extra mode is the brilliant Crazy Box, a mixture of minigames that requires players to use their crazy skills to complete tasks or objectives in the fastest time. These minigames include bursting giant balloons, 10-pin bowling with your cab, and dropping off multiple passengers, another feature that we'd see in Crazy Taxi 2. Some of the challenges are better suited to specific cabbies. For example, the 10-pin bowling is more difficult with Gina because her cab doesn't crazy drift quite as easily. After completing the 3 challenges in a tier, you're presented with an S-Class challenge to really test your skills. At a glance, the Crazy Box may look like a fun distraction from the main game, but in reality it's the perfect place to practice those various techniques from the game, free from the pressure of picking up and dropping off passengers. In Crazy Taxi, it's easy to just scramble around picking up passengers randomly, but as you learn the city and the habits of its passengers, you'll soon be plotting your way around the city, and that's when laps come into play. Now, laps, I hear you ask? Yes, and while Crazy Taxi is no racing game, the key to big scores is laps. Essentially, the key is to end up back at the university, which is the final stop before the starting position when you start a new game. Now, there's no order of passengers in the early stages that you need to look out for. You're pretty much free to collect whoever you see fit in whatever order during the early section of the game. And I usually go between the retail area and the baseball stadium several times before setting off for the city via the freeway. When you get to the city though, the game changes and opens right up, because it's here where you'll need a specific order of passengers to be picked up, and we need them to all be going where they usually want to go. The caveat being that they can sometimes throw a spanner in the works, sending your plans for a lap into absolute chaos. You want to get to the bus terminal first, and it's here where we need our friend in the suit with sunglasses to stick to the script and ask to go to the fire station. If he does that, we're halfway there. Once you drop off at the fire station, look directly across the road and you'll see a young man in a tan-coloured suit holding a bouquet of roses. Pick him up, and if he asks to go to the university, the lap is complete. Now, on occasion, he can be a complete time waster and ask to go to the mall instead. He's just ruined a lap. There are other means of getting to the university. A rarer method is the lookout tower, then the tennis court before heading to university, but I find that the method of bus terminal, fire station, university to be the easiest and most common way of completing a lap. Crazy Taxi really is the game that embodies the Dreamcast, and while every home version of the game that has followed has used the Dreamcast version as its base, none of them capture the feel and the spirit of it. The PlayStation 2 and GameCube ports seem duller, and their handling isn't quite right. The cabs feel wrong, and as much as you can complain about the Dreamcast controller, even if it gives you cramp after an hour-long run, it still feels right. Quite simply, the Dreamcast and Crazy Taxi were made for one another. And sure, the Dreamcast has an advantage of being based on the Naomi version, the arcade hardware that runs Crazy Taxi, but that's just one of the many reasons why the game and the console are a match made in gaming heaven. The voice acting, the music, the iconic retail brands, the entire package on Dreamcast is like a little year 2000 time capsule, all neatly packed into a GD-ROM waiting to be discovered. The removal of the licensed music and the brands dilutes the experience, which some may think is strange to say because the gameplay is still unchanged, but Crazy Taxi is all about the whole package, because it was a package that captured everything that made the early 2000s such a fun time to be alive. It's a game which is ultimately the sum of its parts, and without all of those parts intact, it just isn't Crazy Taxi. The Dreamcast version remains the only version 100% true to the original vision of the game. The visuals, the colours, the sound, the music, the brands, the controls, it all just works beautifully, and it symbolises the spirit of the console it was born to run on. And that's why, for me, it's the most iconic Dreamcast game. I do hope you have enjoyed this one. We'd love to hear from you in the comments on your thoughts about Crazy Taxi. Is it the most iconic Dreamcast game, or have you got another game in mind? Let us know in the comments with your most iconic Dreamcast game, or even your Crazy Taxi memories. This has been James, the SEGAHolic of the Sega Guys, and until next time, we will see you on the Sega side.